The massive hall of the Galactic Council stretched wider than any Earth stadium. 500 alien species filled the seats, their strange forms creating a sea of colors and shapes. At the center stood a single human, Captain James Walker, Earth's last representative in space, the council leader. A tall being with silver skin named Crix raised his 4 arms for silence. His voice boomed through translators into every language present. The humans have been in exile for 50 Earth years. Today, they dare to request readmission to our great alliance. Laughter rippled through the crowd. Some aliens made clicking sounds with their mandibles. Others flashed colors that meant mockery in their cultures. The humans had been cast out after losing the border war. Deemed too weak to contribute to galactic society, James stood straight, his worn uniform bearing Earth's faded flag. Behind him, his small crew of 12 humans waited in silence. They had traveled 6 months in their old ship just to reach this meeting. Many council members hadn't even bothered to attend, thinking this hearing was a waste of time. Humans were given the outer territories as punishment, announced Vex, a reptilian. Ambassador, the dead zones where nothing grows, where pirates raid freely. You were meant to learn humility there. Instead, you dare come back asking for membership? The hall erupted in agreement. Species after species stood to voice their contempt. Nexari delegate, a being of pure energy, pulsed with amusement. Humans couldn't even defend their own borders. They lost 40% of their fleet in one battle. What could they possibly offer us now? James waited patiently for the noise to die down. His weathered face showed no emotion, though his crew could see his hands tighten slightly behind his back. When relative quiet returned, he spoke clearly. Honored Council, we don't come seeking your pity or your charity. We come with evidence of what humanity has achieved in exile. More laughter. Crix leaned forward on his crystalline throne. Evidence? Of what? How to survive on scraps. How to run from pirates. The galaxy knows what happened to humanity. You were given the void sectors, the most dangerous and worthless space in the galaxy. 23 dead worlds. 5 destroyed space stations. Constant pirate attacks. We expected you to beg for help within 5 years. Yet here we stand, 50 years later, James replied simply. Rex, a wolf-like canned warrior, growled from his seat. Standing, perhaps, but barely. Our scouts report your colonies are small. Your ships are outdated, your population scattered. You survive, nothing more. James reached into his jacket and pulled out a small data cube. The motion made several security guards tense, but they relaxed when scanners showed it was just information storage. This cube contains footage from the void sectors. Real footage, not propaganda. Not reports from your scouts who only observed from safe distances. This is what actually happened in humanity's exile. The council murmured with mild interest. Some members were already checking their communication devices, bored with what they assumed would be desperate propaganda. Play your little video, Crix said with a dismissive wave. Show us your struggling farms and patched-up ships. Then we can end this waste of time and return you to your exile. James inserted the cube into the council's projection system. The lights dimmed, and a massive hologram filled the center of the hall. This footage, James said quietly, was compiled from security cameras, ship records, and citizen recordings across all human settlements in the void sectors. Everything you're about to see is verified truth. The first image appeared, a dead world, gray and barren, with toxic storms raging across its surface. The timestamp showed it from 49 years ago, just after humanity's exile began. The aliens settled in to watch what they assumed would be a story of struggle and failure. They had no idea what was coming. James stepped back, letting the footage speak for itself. In the darkness of the Great Hall, Earth's greatest secret was about to be revealed. The hologram shifted, showing the same dead world 1 year later. Where toxic storms had raged, a shimmer appeared in the atmosphere. The council members leaned forward slightly, confusion replacing mockery on their varied faces. What the humans did first, James narrated calmly, was what everyone said was impossible. We terraformed dead worlds. The footage accelerated, showing years compressed into minutes. The gray planets slowly developed patches of blue and green. Massive machines, crude but effective, worked across the surface. The toxic atmosphere cleared. Oceans formed. Plants spread across continents. Impossible. Shouted Nox, a crystalline being whose people were known for their technology. Terraforming takes centuries with proper equipment. You had nothing but Exile ships and basic supplies. The footage continued, showing human colonists in environmental suits planting the first seeds. Children were born in underground bunkers, while the air above turned breathable. The timestamp showed this transformation. Took only 12 years. We didn't have your advanced technology, James admitted, so we invented our own. Every human became a scientist, an engineer, a farmer. Children learned terraforming equations alongside their alphabets. We couldn't afford to fail, so we didn't. The scene changed to another dead world, this one covered in radiation from an ancient war. The Council knew this planet, Gamma 7, considered permanently uninhabitable by every species. The radiation levels could kill most life forms in hours, but the footage showed humans walking on its surface. Not in radiation suits, but in simple clothing. Gardens grew where nothing should exist. Cities rose from radioactive soil. We developed radiation-eating bacteria, James explained as the council sat in stunned silence. It took 5,000 failed experiments. 3 researchers died from exposure during testing. But we succeeded where your scientists said success was impossible. The hologram shifted to space footage. A massive pirate fleet approached a human mining station, one of the many attacks the Exiles faced. The Council expected to see destruction, the humans fleeing or dying. Instead, they watched the mining station transform. What looked like weak civilian structures suddenly revealed hidden weapons. The miners themselves fought with a coordination that rivaled military units. The pirate fleet, which had terrorized the void sectors for decades, was completely destroyed. Every human in Exile became a soldier, James said. Not because we wanted war, but because we had no choice. Farmers carried rifles. Teachers taught combat tactics. Even our children learned to defend their homes. The footage showed raid after raid, attack after attack. Each time, the humans won. Not with superior technology, but with determination that bordered on insanity. A single human woman held off 30 pirates with improvised explosives. A group of teenage colonists reprogrammed enemy drones mid-battle. An elderly man crashed his cargo ship into a pirate cruiser to save a colony. Crix's confident expression had vanished. These are the same humans we exiled? The ones who lost the border war? We lost that war because we fought with rules, James replied. In Exile, there were no rules, only survival. The hologram showed the 23 dead worlds given to humanity. One by one, they transformed. Where the Council had given humanity graveyards, humans built gardens. Where they had been given ruins, humans built cities. The void sectors, the most dangerous region of space, had become safer than some core worlds. But the most shocking footage was yet to come. The timestamp showed 3 years ago. A massive alien fleet appeared at the edge of human space. Not pirates. This time, but something else. The symbols on the ships made several council members gasp. The Devourers, whispered Rex. They disappeared 30 years ago, after consuming 12 systems. The Devourers were a nomadic species that stripped worlds of all resources, leaving nothing behind. Even the Galactic Council's combined fleet had failed to stop them. They had simply vanished one day, and the galaxy had prayed they would never. Return. The footage showed them entering human space, confident and aggressive. Their massive harvest ships approached the nearest human colony. The Council watched, knowing what should happen next. Another dead world, humans fleeing or consumed. Instead, something unprecedented occurred. The humans didn't run. They didn't negotiate. Every ship, from military vessels to cargo haulers to personal transports, formed a wall between the Devourers and the colony. They came to consume our worlds, James said quietly. We had turned dead rocks into homes with our own hands, our own sweat, our own blood. We would not let them take what we had built. What happened next would haunt the Council's memory forever. Asterisk. The hologram showed the Devourer fleet, 500 massive ships, each the size of a city. Against them stood the human defense, 40 military vessels, 60 converted cargo ships, and nearly 300 civilian craft. It should have been a massacre. The Devourer commander's message played through the recording, translated into Galactic Standard. Surrender your resources, humans. Resistance means extinction. The human response came from Admiral Tom Brooks, a former farmer who had risen to command during exile. Every grain of soil on these worlds was paid for with human blood. Come and try to take it. The battle began with the Devourers' typical strategy, overwhelming force directed at the weakest points. But humans didn't fight like other species. When the enemy targeted their cargo ships, the cargo ships rammed into enemy vessels, detonating their cores. When civilians' ships were cornered, they formed suicide chains, taking enemies with them. Madness, breathed Lyra, an avian counselor. Pure madness. No, James corrected. Determination. Every person in those ships had built their homes from nothing. They had children on those colonies. They had crops they'd grown in impossible soil. They weren't fighting for abstract concepts like honor or glory. They were fighting for their dinner tables, their gardens, their children's playgrounds. The footage showed a small transport ship, clearly civilian, flying directly into a Devourer harvester's intake port. The explosion disabled the massive vessel. The pilot's last message played, "My daughter's first steps were on that colony. You won't take her home." The council chamber had gone completely silent. Even species that had no concept of human emotions could understand the raw determination they were witnessing. The battle raged for 6 hours. The humans lost ship after ship, but they didn't retreat. When weapons failed, they used their ships as weapons. When ships failed, escape pods became guided missiles. The footage showed a human pilot, his ship destroyed, steering his escape pod manually into an enemy engine dot. Then came the turning point. A young human commander, David Park, noticed something. The Devourer ships, so used to enemies fleeing, had no rear defenses. Their entire strategy assumed forward momentum against retreating foes. All ships, David's recorded voice commanded, behind them. Get behind them at any cost. What followed was a maneuver no sane species would attempt. The human fleet, what remained of it, flew through the enemy formation. Ships collided, exploded, were torn apart by enemy fire. But some made it through. The Devourers, for the first time in their history, had to turn around. Their formation broke. Their harvest ships, designed only to consume fleeing prey, were suddenly vulnerable. The humans hit them with everything. Missiles, mining charges, even throwing cargo containers filled with industrial explosives. But the real shock came when the Owlish colonies themselves joined the battle. The footage showed planetary defense systems that shouldn't exist. weapons built from mining equipment, shields generated from terraforming technology. Children manned communication stations. Elderly colonists operated targeting systems. Every human from age 8 to 80 was part of the defense. Your military doctrine says civilians should evacuate during attacks, James told the stunned council. Human civilians in exile learned there was nowhere to run, so they learned to fight. The Devourer fleet, reduced by half, finally began to retreat, but the humans didn't let them go. Every surviving human ship pursued. The footage showed them following the Devourers out of human space, hunting them through asteroid fields, chasing them into nebulas. You hunted the Devourers? Crix asked, his voice barely a whisper. We eliminated them, James confirmed, completely. They will never consume another world. The footage showed the final Devourer ship, cornered in an asteroid field. The human fleet, down to just 12 vessels, surrounded it. The Devourer commander begged for mercy, offering technology, resources, anything. Admiral Brooks' response was simple. You came to eat our children's futures. There is no mercy for that. The last Devourer ship was destroyed, but the footage wasn't done. It showed the aftermath. Human colonies rebuilding, children playing in parks that shouldn't exist on dead worlds, crops growing in soil that had been radioactive just years before. In 50 years of exile, James said, humanity faced 17. Pirate fleets, 6 plague outbreaks, 3 solar flares that should have wiped out colonies, and the Devourers. We lost 60% of our initial exile population. But every survivor became something the galaxy has never seen. He paused, looking at the silent council. We became unkillable. The hologram shifted to show something different, not battles or terraforming, but daily life in human exile colonies. The council expected to see military bases, weapons factories, citizens living in fear. Instead, they saw something that defied comprehension. Children played in streets that had been battlefields. Months before, markets sold vegetables grown in soil that had been toxic. Musicians performed in squares where pirates had once executed colonists. The humans hadn't just survived, they had thrived. This doesn't make sense, said Yara, a telepathic counselor. My people can sense emotions even through recordings. These humans ... They're not broken by trauma. They're not hardened into weapons. They're still ... human. James nodded. That's what you never understood about us. Humanity's greatest strength isn't our ability to fight. It's our ability to hope, to build, to love even in hell. The footage showed a wedding on a colony that had been attacked just weeks before. The bride wore a dress made from salvaged ship fabric. The groom's suit was patched military gear, but their smiles were real. Around them, humans danced and celebrated while defense turrets stood ready in the background. Every human child born in exile learned 3 things, James explained. How to fight, how to build, and how to laugh. We taught them mathematics through ballistic calculations. We taught them art while painting camouflage. We taught them music with warning sirens as percussion. The hologram displayed a school where 8-year-olds assembled weapons blindfolded while reciting poetry. A hospital where doctors performed surgery while teaching combat medicine. A farm where vegetables grew in hydraulic systems that could convert to missile launchers in 30 seconds. Rex stood up, his warrior culture struggling to process what he saw. You turned your entire civilization into weapons, but kept your humanity? We had to become weapons to survive, James replied. But we remained human to make survival worth it. The footage continued, showing innovations born from desperation. Humans had developed technology the galaxy thought impossible. Not through superior intelligence, but through necessity. They created food from radiation. They turned pirate weapons into farming equipment. They made dead worlds bloom using the ashes of their enemies as fertilizer. Then came footage from just 1 year ago. A human exploration ship had found something in the deepest part of the void sectors, an ancient structure predating all known civilizations. The Council had declared such areas off-limits, too dangerous to explore. The ancient vault breathed. Nox, legend says it contains technology that could reshape the galaxy. Every expedition sent there has vanished. We didn't send an expedition, James said. We sent families. People who had already survived impossible things. They didn't go to conquer or claim. They went to understand. The footage showed humans, carefully studying the structure, children drawing pictures of alien symbols while their parents decoded them. Where other species had sent warriors or scientists, humans had sent entire communities. We opened it, James said simply. The Council erupted. Several members stood, shouting in their languages. The ancient vault had been sealed for millions of years. Wars had been fought over attempts to claim it. The hologram showed what was inside. Not weapons, not technology, but knowledge. Libraries. Of information about species long extinct, medicines that could cure plagues, agricultural techniques that could feed trillions. And at the center, a message in every possible language. For those who prove worthy through suffering and unity. The vault's guardians tested us, James explained. Not our strength or technology, but our spirit. It asked us why we struggled to survive. Our answer was simple: for our children. For the future. For the chance to show the galaxy that humanity could contribute something beautiful. The footage showed human colonies now. They hadn't kept the vault's gifts to themselves. They were developing cures for diseases that plagued other species. They were growing food that could survive anywhere. They were building shields that could protect any world. We come to you today not as exiles seeking return, James said, his voice growing stronger. We come as a species transformed by hardship into something new. Every human alive today can build a home from nothing, defend it against anything, and still teach their children to paint sunsets. He looked directly at Crix. You exiled us to teach us humility. Instead, exile taught us that humans are unstoppable when united. Now we offer to share what we've learned, not as subjects of the Council, but as equals who earned their place, through blood and hope. The hologram showed one final image, Earth, distant and blue, with human exile ships beginning to turn toward home. The silence in the Council chamber was complete. 500 alien species sat frozen, processing what they had witnessed. The footage had ended, but its impact continued to ripple through the hall like waves in still water. Crix finally stood, his 4 arms trembling slightly. The leader of the Galactic Council, who had overseen humanity's exile 50 years ago, looked older somehow. You survived the unsurvivable. You defeated the undefeatable. You opened what could not be opened. And through it all, you remained ... human. We remained more than human, James corrected. We became what humans were always meant to be, unified. In exile, there were no nations, no divisions. Every human was family. Every loss was personal. Every victory was shared. Vex, the reptilian ambassador who had mocked humanity earlier, stood slowly. The pirates that terrorized the void sectors for centuries, all dead. The devourers who consumed 12 systems, eliminated. The dead worlds we gave you as punishment, all thriving. This is not possible. It's not probable, James agreed. But humanity has never been constrained by probability. We lost the border. War because we were divided. Following rules, playing politics. Exile stripped all that away. It left only the core of what we are. A young counselor, new to her position, asked quietly, "What are you?" James smiled for the first time since entering the chamber. We're the species that looks at impossible odds and says, try us. We're the ones who plant flowers in radioactive soil. We're the people who teach our children combat and poetry in the same breath. We're survivors who refuse to let survival make us cruel. The footage resumed, showing one final scene. A human child, born in exile, stood before the ancient vault. The vault's guardian, an AI older than recorded history, asked her what humanity wanted. The child's answer played through the chamber. We want to go home. But more than that, we want to bring home with us every world we've healed, every life we've saved, every lesson we've learned. We want to show the galaxy that throwing us away was the best thing that ever happened to us. Lyra spoke up, her avian features ruffled with emotion. You could have returned as conquerors. With what you've built, what you've learned, you could demand anything. We could, James agreed, but that's not human nature. We don't want to conquer. We want to contribute. The ancient vault gave us knowledge that could revolutionize medicine, agriculture, defense, and peace. We want to share it, but only as equals. The weight of the moment settled on the council. They had exiled humanity as punishment, expecting them to fail or beg for return. Instead, humanity had transformed into something unprecedented, a species forged by suffering into strength, but retaining compassion. Rex, the warrior Canid, performed something his species rarely did. He showed respect to a former enemy. His head bowed, he spoke. The humans we exiled were weak, divided, soft. The humans who stand before us now are none of these things. They are what we all claim to be, but rarely achieve. Truly unified, truly strong, truly worthy. One by one, other counselors stood, not in mockery or dismissal, but in recognition. The hologram continued showing human achievements. Colonies that welcomed refugee species, human medics treating enemy wounded, human farmers sharing impossible crops with starving worlds. You've shown us something we didn't want to see, Crix admitted, that our comfortable lives in the core worlds have made us stagnant. You've innovated more in 50 years of exile than we have in 500 years of peace. James reached into his jacket again, pulling out a second data cube. This contains the complete technical specifications for everything we've developed. Terraforming techniques, defense systems, medical breakthroughs, agricultural miracles. Humanity offers this freely to the Council, whether you accept us or not. Freely? Knox asked, suspicious. What do you want in return? Recognition, James said simply, not as subjects, but as equals. A full seat on the Council. And one more thing, the right to return to Earth. The vote was called. One by one, each species cast their decision. When the count finished, it was unanimous, something that had never happened in Council history. Humanity is welcomed back, Crix announced, his voice carrying across the galaxy through quantum communications. Not as returning exiles, but as teachers, as examples, as the species that proved that the greatest strength isn't in weapons or technology, but in unity and determination. As humanity's ships turned toward Earth, the galaxy watched. They had mocked humanity's exile, but the footage had silenced them all.